achieved.
Unfortunately, I had this really awesome intro and talked about CM Punk and the significance of what happened to him as far as his contract is concerned and what he should do with his future. I ran a show. I recorded my entire show. It is extremely late here. I have to get up fairly early to go to real work, and none of it recorded. I mentioned this. My computer crashed. My solid state hard drive died on me, so I've been in rebuild mode, and I've got it rebuilt and up and running. And for some reason, none of my audio files recorded. It's giving me an error message, so here I am doing it one more time, and I'm not happy about it, but nonetheless, we'll make the best out of it. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. We're breaking down the upcoming UFC Fight Night 95 event, which will take place on September 24th from Brasilia, Brazil, and feature the return of Cris Cyborg, not Cyborg Santos, Cris Cyborg, in the main event of the evening, taking on newcomer Lina Lansberg, who we'll talk about in a bit. For those of you who don't know, not a lot do know a lot about her, but we'll get there. I'll be giving you my main card predictions for all the fights, as I always do. My preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. I'm coming off an event where I went 8-3. In disappointing fashion, I lost the main event. I had Dustin Poirier, which cost me my gold parlay, my parlays, my bet packs, which will be available for $12 for the entire card, or you can buy a subscription for pretty much till the end of the year. I can't even hold, if they were things you could hold in your hand, I can't hold the number of parlays that have lost by one leg, which is disappointing, which some people, would suggest scale back 3 and 2 leg parlays. I like going for big hits. And that's when you go for home runs all the time, you're going to lose in grand fashion. But then when you hit big and you knock it out of the park, it's fucking awesome. So that's what we look for every week. So head over to kamikazeoverdrive.net and join the madness if you want to. As I said, this is the second time I'm running through all these predictions. Let's get to our first main card pick. The main card opens up in the UFC's featherweight division as Godofredo Pepey, 13-4-0, takes on Mike El Cucuy, the second El Cucuy, De La Torre, the less popular one, if you will, 14 wins, 5 losses, and 1 no contest for Mr. De La Torre. This fight was originally scheduled to be between De La Torre and Renato Moicano, but I like this matchup better. Pepey, this is his 8th time fighting at home in the UFC. He actually fought for the first time outside of Brazil since signing with the UFC, outside of Brazil, period, for his career. In his last matchup against Darren Elkins, he is 3-1 when fighting at home inside the octagon against foreign fighters. For De La Torre, he's coming off a split decision win over Nam. He's 2-2 with 1 no contest inside the octagon. He did start his career with the UFC at 0-2, but a no contest fight against Ortega that was overruled, originally submission loss, kind of saved him and allowed him to continue on, pick up a couple of wins, and hold his position on the roster. The American, 4 inches taller, he'll have a 2-inch reach advantage, 2-inch reach advantage for Pepey, who also happens to be 1 year younger. For De La Torre, he has been out of action for 10 months. Now, for De La Torre, he comes into this fight, he's a BJJ blue belt, 6 wins by submission, 6 knockout victories. He does, though, have 3 submission losses, 4 if you go back and count the Ortega fight for what it actually was and not actually what it was recorded as. He has 10 first-round finishes on his record, 4-3 in fights that go outside of the opening round. For Pepey, 8 submissions. His last 2 both coming by triangle. He has 2 losses by knockout as well, which is worth mentioning. The Brazilian has 10 of his 12 wins coming inside the first 5 minutes. He's a very aggressive quick starter. 8 submission victories, very good off his back, exceptionally active guard. He has those long limbs, which makes him a constant threat on the floor. Against Deshaun Johnson, he caught him with a triangle armbar combination after Johnson shot for a takedown. When he fought Andre Fili, they clinched up. Pepey jumped guard, jumped up, locked him up, standing, eventually pulled him to that with a triangle already in place, and eventually finished that fight after a pretty Herculean struggle back and forth, which was very impressive. He will pull guard, as I just mentioned. He throws a very high guard. The other thing, if he's not able to catch you with his legs, look for him to attack with a Kimura off his back and orchestrate an Upa sweep, which is very entertaining to watch. Even if you are picking the other fighter, like I was in the last fight, when he pulls it off, it's damn impressive. And he did it to Darren Elkins. And Darren Elkins has an exceptionally solid top game, very good base, and he did it to Elkins, which shows how good he is at pulling that technique off. He will land some ground and pound from the top position, but he is looking for submissions. He absolutely thrives in the chaos. He creates scrambles. He looks for his opponents to make mistakes, and he looks to capitalize. He was very active off his back against Elkins, but still he was on his back, and Elkins has very sound positioning, and once he's able to settle in and control that top position, he was winning the majority of those exchanges on the floor. Pepey's corner was asking him stop pulling guard because essentially you have a couple moments and then it's all downhill after that. He does tend to slow down in longer fights, which is kind of with his 1-2 record that kind of indicates that he's not great in decisions and doesn't tend to go there. He was stopped twice, both in the mat in the UFC by Sam Sicilia and Phillipe Arantes with ground and pound from top position after he willingly went to the mat with them. On the striking, he tends to be very aggressive with big overhand punches. He throws himself off balance against because he's not afraid to go to the mat when he's doing so. Long-range uppercuts, he'll mix in a flying knee, which he stopped Nahod Lahat with. He'll mix in a straight right as well. He came up very aggressive with Darren Elkins, throwing some spinning stuff, trying to create that chaos, trying to create that situation where Elkins jumps on him and he locks up something quickly. For De La Torre, he can crack on the feet. The man can throw. He throws a very nice and hard left hand. He'll work in his uppercut as well. When he fought Thiago Trator, he blitzed him with a flurry, landed a series of hard lefts after that flurry was over, and finished with ground and pound. He stood and swung with Nam. Again, that big left hook was landing a lot for him. He does tend to carry his chin a little bit high. Mark Bocek cracked him a couple of times in his debut. He drops his left hand as well. We saw Maximo Blanco catch him with the right hand, come in and put him kind of controversially, but knock him out nonetheless. Controversial finish. He tends to come up very aggressive, and Ortega was able to capitalize on that, gain superior position, and submitted him. He struggled to create a lot of separation against Bocek. Similar against Ortega, very similar against Nam, just cannot seem to get them off. He will punch in the clinch. He can be very offensive from that position, uses an overhook or a whizzer to defend takedown attempts, but he's very aggressive in close. He can be controlled in that position, and that's something that is concerning. Now, both these guys are going to come out looking to scrap. I'd say Pepey is better at capitalizing on his aggression and his opponent's aggression back. I like saying that word aggression because it means it should be a good fight. I think we're going to see Pepey either pull guard, jump guard, do something crazy here, and De La Torre is going to take the bait and try and capitalize on that position. It's going to get him in trouble. Look for Pepey to either attack with a triangle or armbar off his back, or use that Kimura Oompa sweep to get to top position, and again, work for something from there. My prediction is Godofredo Pepey to defeat Mike De La Torre by submission. Fight number 2 is in the UFC's middleweight division. Is the 15th ranked Thiago Santos, 13 wins, 4 losses, takes on the American Eric Spicely with a current record of 8 wins and 2 defeats. Now, Santos is coming off a knockout loss to Gegard Mousasi. He had won 4 fights in a row. He was climbing the ranks. He had knocked out Nate Marquardt, so this is a sizable step back in competition for Thiago. For Spicely, he debuted against Sam Alvey and lost by first-round submission in that fight. He is 1 inch taller. Santos will have a 3-inch reach advantage. Spicely is 2 years younger, but Santos has a sizable 17-9 advantage in experience overall. Spicely 2 wins by knockout, 4 submission victories, and 2 wins on the scorecards. For Santos, 8 wins by knockout, 1-1 in fights ending by submission, and 4-1 on the scorecards. He does have 2 knockout losses, and he was submitted in his UFC debut by Cesar Fajeda. Now, Spicely, he was a member of the Ultimate Fighters Team Claudia, fighting at light heavyweight. He won by rear naked choke to get into the house. He picked up a unanimous decision in the quarterfinals, was knocked out by the eventual tournament winner in the semis. He's very aggressive. He's aggressive again. He's a grappling-based fighter. He will shoot on a single or he will clinch up. He did a good job trying to punch his way into the clinch against Alvey. He will strike and change levels once he gets there, come over the top, and then drop down. His technique, though, for takedown technique, not great. Doesn't get his hips low enough, doesn't drive through that well. He, as I said, he likes to shoot on that single. He was struggling to drag Sam Alvey down. He really overcommitted on it. It appeared he didn't have much of a backup plan after that initial attempt was thwarted. He is a BJ Brown belt. He has 4 different submission wins as a pro. He can work from top or bottom, likes to chain his submissions together until something sticks. But against Alvey, ultimately, he left his head in too long, and Alvey caught him with that power guillotine and submitted him. For Santos, he's a black belt in Muay Thai, so polar opposite, if you will. Dangerous kicking offense. He will go to the head. He will go to the body. He will go to the midsection. He knocked out Steve Bossé with a head kick. He's got a pair of body kick-based TKOs as well in the UFC. He will go, as I said, he'll go to all areas, and what that does is it opens up holes in the defense of his opponent. If they know he's going to kick you in the body, he's kicked you there several times, you're going to start to cover up there, boom, your head's open. If your legs are being battered, you start to react to that, boom, your body's open. He takes advantage of it. His left leg tends to produce the majority of his offense. He will switch stances to set it up, which tends to telegraph it a little bit, but still he's so quick at getting it in it, sometimes it doesn't matter. The other aspect of his game, which is very effective, is his clinch work. He defended Elias Teodoro's attempts to grind him out in the clinch and take him down, and he started landing brutal knees and elbows in that fight. I predicted a wealthy upset, and he did, and was able to bust him up, cut him open, and win the matchup based on that offense. When he fought Nate Marquardt, he did not a bad job of cutting off the cage. He landed several big left hands, eventually KO'd him. He will also mix in a left jab. But again, his punching technique is probably below both his clinch offense and his kicking offense. And that's something, certainly it's a concern there. He leaves his guard open. He can be knocked out, as we saw against Mousasi. He tends to be a bit of a slow starter as well. He was hesitant to engage Uriah Hall early on. Even against Theodore, he let the Canadian dictate the pace there. He is a BJ purple belt with a 75% takedown defense, but he can be taken down. Mousasi took him down twice. We are going to see Spicely look to exploit that and put him on the mat. Where Mousasi had success was able to swarm with punches, land some takedowns in the aftermath, and actually got the knockout of Santos when he was standing back up. Spicely, he likes to engage. He will stand at range, though, and look for his opportunity to shoot in and attack, and that's going to put him in the range of getting kicked and cracked with those big body kicks, those big head kicks, and those low kicks. If he does clinch and can't get takedowns, that's where Thiago's going to look to land those inside shots, those elbows, those knees, and beat him up in there. Thiago's a better striker. He needs to avoid going to the mat. My prediction is Thiago Santos to defeat Eric Spicely by knockout. Arguably the best fight on the main card takes place in the UFC's lightweight division as the surging Francisco Massaranduba Trinaldo, 20 wins and 4 losses, will certainly have the Brazilian crowd behind him when he takes on the Irish Dragon, Paul Felder. 12 wins and 2 defeats for Felder. Now, Felder is coming off back-to-back wins after suffering the first 2 losses of his career. He's regained a little bit of momentum. He was a guy who cracked in the top 15 very quickly and kind of flamed out a little bit and has lost some of that, kind of like Rustam Havilov has lost a little bit of that mojo, and they're looking to get it back. For Trinaldo, as I mentioned, he is surging. It's a meteoric rise, as Goldie would say. After he went 4-3 in his first 7 UFC fights, he has won 6 consecutive matchups, and he is on the verge of moving into that top 15. With another victory, he should be getting a shot to move into the rankings. Felder, 2 inches taller, 70-inch reach advantage. They both have, so it's equal there. Felder is the younger man by 6 years. Now, for the Americans, 7 wins by knockout. Trinaldo has 6. Both guys can crack. Neither man's been knocked out, so they both have good chins. Trinaldo does have 5 submission victories. He is also 9-2 on the scorecards. Felder, 1 submission victory, 4-2 on the scorecards. So you see kind of which fighter here has a better style as far as how to win and show the judges you are the clear winner. It certainly favors the Brazilian. Now, Felder, black belt in Taekwondo and Karate, BJJ blue belt. He is a kick-first fighter. He can counter-strike, but he likes to kick. Body kicks, low kicks, very hard, lots of flashy kicks as well. He will also look to bully his opponent into the clinch, and he has had issues with losing position once he does that. Now, there's kind of a tale of 2 fights with Felder. He definitively knocked out Danny Castillo with that spinning back fist. He submitted Darren Cruikshank in a fight he might have been behind in, at least was very close. He submitted him in the 3rd round. Versus his 2 losses where he just didn't do enough. His opponents outworked him. They were more effective, and they took the fight home. And the numbers kind of indicate that. 3.43 strikes landed per minute versus 3.06 strikes absorbed per minute. So not big numbers there. A lot of single strikes, a lot of strikes that don't get through. He tends to short arm some of his techniques, kind of starts and stops some of his techniques. Against Berkman, he benefited tremendously from the fact that Berkman wasn't trying to overwhelm him or unload with big barrages either. Felder has some issues with pushing the pace, too much flash, not enough function in his offense. Jab some, throw some jabs, throw some straight, right hands, leg kicks, body kicks. Keep it simple, keep it consistent. He doesn't do that enough. He was missing with a lot of his strikes against Ross Pearson and getting countered and outworked in the aftermath. He would crack with some big shots from Berkman, and he was swinging wildly in response with very little effectiveness. His defensive wrestling has been okay. He was taken down 6 times by Sago. Berkman took him down on multiple occasions as well. When he fought Cruikshank, he attempted a couple of submissions, eventually got the submission win in that matchup, but still it was kind of touch and go at points. And for the Brazilian, Trinaldo, BJ brown belt under Sergio Moraes, so a very good ground fighter, improving ground fighter. He attempted some takedowns against Medeiros. He got pinned him on the cage and held him there as well for a prolonged period of time. Over his 6-fight winning streak, he has landed 6 takedowns. He's given up 10, so it's certainly... They're there to be had. He can also give them up, but he knows how to win fights when he's taken down a lot. Ultimately, the thing that has led to his resurgence, or whatever you want to call it, my brain is shutting down, his climb up the ranks, his meteoric rise, has been an increase in offensive output. In addition to that, it's better conditioning. He's been a better conditioned fighter because he doesn't brawl as much. He's more technical and calculated. He landed 117 strikes against Yancy Medeiros. If you look at early UFC Trinaldo and said he's going to land 117 strikes in a fight, people laugh at you, but you certainly see him doing it now. More calculated, he will still unload with big power. He's got some pop in his right hand. He'll pump that left jab out. He'll go to the body as well. He's got some nice hard low kicks at range, some knees to the midsection once his opponent looks to close the gap. but he's very effective. He's not nearly just wild and throwing things for the sake of throwing them. They are all purposeful attacks. He uses a lot of forward pressure, shut down his opponent's offense. Did it against Ross Pearson, did it against Chad Laprise, did it against Yancy Medeiros as well. Hurt him. Was also getting tagged with some shots, though, which he needs to be careful of. Ultimately, the key to beating Trinaldo has either been outworking on the feet or landing more takedowns and keeping him pinned on the mat. Trinaldo, though, is the more active fighter than Paul Felder offensively. If Felder can't dominate him start to finish, he absolutely needs a finish. If he can't blow him out of the water so definitively that there's no way you can say, yes, clear decision victory, he needs to put him away. Felder's style has trouble translating to decision victories in close fights in the U.S. It's going to be incredibly difficult for him to win a decision in Brazil against a Brazilian with his style of fighting. Unless he hurts him in all 3 rounds and the judges can't overlook it. I'm looking at Frankie Saenz versus Yuri Alcantara, where he's able to really win that fight clearly, even though most people expected he wouldn't. Trinaldo pushes the pace. I think he's going to keep moving forward. I think he's going to be more active. He maybe even lands a couple of takedowns. My prediction is Francisco Trinaldo to defeat Paul Felder by decision. Fight number 4 in the main card takes place in the UFC's heavyweight division. It will feature a pair of ranked fighters, but certainly not the way we would look at ranked fighters in a lot of the other divisions, as the 11th ranked Roy Big Country Nelson, 22 wins and 13 losses, takes on the still ranked in the top 15, but he is ranked 15th, Antonio Bigfoot Silva, 19 wins, 9 losses, and 1 no contest. These are 2 heavyweights that are pretty much non-factors in the division as well. They are gatekeepers. Nelson probably has a little bit more left in the tank, but of his last couple fights, he has not put on good performances, especially against Derek Lewis, and Jared Rochat left a lot to be desired as well. Roy is coming off a disappointing decision loss. He used his ground game in that matchup against Lewis. He landed 7 takedowns, but he landed 4 significant strikes. 15 minutes, 4 significant strikes. Someone said it before, if you heard that Roy Nelson lands 4 significant strikes in a fight, you go, oh, he won by knockout. No, he lost by decision. That's what happened. Let that sink in. Okay. Silva has just 1 win in his last 7 matchups. That's also disheartening, disappointing for him. That win came over the retired Soa Palele, where he basically got smoked in the first round. Palele gassed and Bigfoot finished him. All of his losses during the span have come by knockout. He actually has 7 consecutive losses by knockout. That's concerning. Bigfoot is 4 inches taller. He'll have an 8-inch reach advantage. They both will come in around 265 pounds. Bigfoot is 3 years younger. Both, though, are getting up there in age, even for the heavyweight division. Nelson, 14 wins by knockout, 4-0 in fights ended by submission, 3-11 on the scorecards. He is 2-9 in UFC fights to go outside of the first round, so it's basically 5 minutes or bust for Big Country. For Bigfoot, 14 wins by knockout, 2-1 on the scorecards, 8 losses by knockout overall. As I said, Soa basically had him in all sorts of trouble and just couldn't finish him. Bigfoot has never looked the same since the TRT ban. He's looked slow, hittable, and his chin is gone. He lacks a lot of foot speed, and his height, and I don't want to say it, but it's the elephant in the room. He has a massive head, huge head. And that big chin, combined with his height, lack of speed, makes him an easy target for guys to crack and knock out. When you look at his striking total, Silva landed 16 significant punches against Soa, 97 in the draw against Mark Hunt, which is his best performance by far in recent memory. Over his last 6 losses, he has landed combined 18 strikes, including 4 matchups where he's landed 1 or less. So that makes that 4 strikes that Roy Nelson landed against Lewis look massive. Nate Diaz type comparison. He outlanded him 4-1. I joke. Nelson has looked to implement takedowns. Did it against Derek Lewis, which tends to be it did it against Josh Barnett. It's a massive deviation from his previous strategy where it's like, I've got an iron chin, I'm going to hit you, you're not going to be able to hold up against my power and you're going down. That's what he's looked to do. Not what has looked to do in the last couple of fights. Impact of getting older could certainly play a role there. He's taken a lot of damage. Josh Barnett hit him 146 significant times. When you get hit 146 times by a heavyweight and don't get knocked out, your brain hates you. He also got knocked out by Mark Hunt, which is pretty much everyone's been knocked out by Mark Hunt. Only the cool kids, which is everybody, have been knocked out by Mark Hunt. He landed 7 takedowns against Lewis, 4 versus Barnett. He's trying to use a top-heavy game, but not enough strikes, not against enough offense. Had he landed more significant strikes against Derek Lewis, he probably wins that matchup from top position. He was tentative at times against Rochat, still landed 42 strikes, but not like we're used to seeing from Roy Nelson. When he's at his best, he lands that big right hand. He keeps his chin down. He'll step off. He'll work in and fire it. He'll paw with the left to set it up. He can work in an uppercut as well, which he stopped Matt Mitrione with, which is very powerful. He has decent head movement on the inside to try and avoid those punches. Still gets hit a lot, still shells up, but he ultimately, if he's throwing well, he can knock guys out with that technique. He'll use some short punches in close range. The uppercut works as well. He cut off the cage against Rochat. The power threat that Nelson offered was keeping Rochelle from engaging, but also Roy wasn't actually following through on it a lot of times. Nelson has made a career of knocking out far more athletic, quicker, and more capable strikers than himself and Bigfoot Silva. Nelson's chin could go at any moment. He could walk into something and Bigfoot could be up on the cage celebrating moments later. Could we see Roy Nelson look for takedowns? We could. But what I think happens is we see Bigfoot rush in like he did against Stefan Struve, or at least he'll come forward eventually and walk into something from Roy, probably that big right hand coming over the top. Look for Nelson to shell up and get on the inside and let his hands go. If Nelson lands, Bigfoot doesn't have the ability to absorb that punch and keep walking forward. Nelson will eventually land, and my prediction is Roy Nelson to defeat Antonio Bigfoot Silva by knockout. Now we move to the co-main event of the evening. It features it's a featherweight fight, but features the former bantamweight champion Renan the Baron Barao, 35 wins, 4 losses, and 1 no contest, taking on Phillipe the Filipino assassin Nover, 12 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw. Let it sink in for a moment. Phillipe Nover is in a co-main event. I believe it's not by injury replacement. I didn't notice that in the notes, so let that sink in. Okay. If we're throwing things out there, Nover was a finalist on The Ultimate Fighter, but not the same as the bantamweight champion by any stretch of the imagination. Now, Barao, taking a second fight at 145 pounds in the UFC, lost his debut. Nover is a far cry from the quality of opposition he was facing at bantamweight or even Jeremy Stephens at featherweight. So big step back. Nover returned to the UFC with a split decision victory. He's coming off a split decision loss, though. He went 0-3 during his first run. He is 3 inches taller, a 2-inch reach advantage, 3 years older as well. He fought at lightweight during his first UFC adventure, so we have another former lightweight taking on a former bantamweight in this fight. He is a BJJ black belt with 5 wins by submission, but he's 5-5 in the scorecards with 1 win by knockout and 1 loss. He has showed improved wrestling, but ultimately, as his record indicates, he is at his best when he gets the fight to the ground and can submit his opponent. He will attack with submissions off his back, look for sweeps, attack from top position as well. He shot early against Nam, struggled to gain any really serious control. Eventually, when he took him down, Nam popped right back up. Couldn't hold that top position. He will dig and clasp his hands, go for big slams, but again, he has trouble establishing himself on top. He eventually jumped the Nam's back at one point, got shrugged off and put on the mat, and he spent a lot of time on the ground in that fight as well. Even though he got the win, a split decision win, he spent a lot of time fending off Nam from top position because of some of the mistakes he was making. His cardio also gave out, which hurt him. In his last fight, he didn't get the opportunity to get the fight to the ground, but it was his volume that was hurting him. And Tuhugov landed some solid body kicks in that matchup that eventually, started to add up. He was getting cracked with some strikes when he was reaching for takedowns. He landed a big head kick that hurt Tuhugov but didn't put him down. Now for Barao, this is only his second fight in the UFC in Brazil. There's a lot of questions about 145. What would happen? Would he have a speed advantage? Would his cardio look better? How would his power factor over it against bigger men? His cardio didn't look that good against Jeremy Stephens. And his power certainly was not there, and Stephens, the power certainly took a toll in that matchup. Now, Barao, still 97% takedown defense. He's hard to put down, capable of scoring his own takedowns. We've seen him use takedowns in different fights. He's very good with submissions. He landed 2 takedowns against Stephens as well. And I think if he can get this fight to the mat, that will certainly benefit him. He looked lighter on his feet early in that matchup. He got quick kicks, throwing combinations, using his speed, changing stances, probably won the first round. But as the fight progressed, he wasn't moving as well. The impact of Stephens' strikes were certainly adding up. He looked more flat-footed. He was unable to match the impact of what Stephens was offering. Couldn't come out with volume because he just didn't have it to offer, and lost the fight as a result. Now, this is a great matchup for Barao, and the UFC has handpicked a fighter in Phillipe Nover. They think that he should be able to beat and get on track. Nover doesn't have a lot of offensive volume when he's standing. And that's not the thing that's kind of troubled Barao in the past. Nover doesn't offer that, as far as we've seen. The wrestling will be the key to Phillipe's success, but Barao is so hard to take down. I don't think Phillipe can get him down consistently enough to capitalize, and even if he does, he won't be able to submit him early on, and that will probably lead to a slowdown. Barao, I think, will land the better strikes. He will pick up his own takedowns. Even if Nover's going to slow down, which is going to minimize the impact of Barao's slowdown if we get to that point. I think Barao's going to land some decent strikes, score his own takedowns. I think Nover will defend on the mat, but he won't be offensive enough to gain an advantage. And my prediction is Renan Barao to defeat Phillipe Nover by decision. Finally, in the main event of the evening, we are in the women's 140-pound. We're not in the women's 140-pound division because it doesn't exist. We have a 140-pound catch weight between Cris Cyborg, 16-1-0 with 1 no contest, taking on the debuting Lina Lansberg of Sweden with a record of 6 wins and 1 loss. Now, question marks is why this is a main event. I'll tell you why it's a main event. It's a catch weight of 140 pounds. I We'll have to see what Cyborg weighs in at. She has talked about how hard the cut is to get down to 135 pounds. If she's made some test cuts, it's just been very difficult. But ultimately, this is a showcase fight where they can show her to the mass UFC fans, smashing opponents, and lead to eventually setting up big money fights where she can fight bigger names and people will give a shit. Because they'll be like, look at this monster who's been killing everybody, and now we're matching her up with Holly Holm or Valentina Shevchenko, somebody like that who offers some quality of opposition that people will care about. For Lansberg, she has won 6 fights in a row, 4 by TKO. Her last 3 opponents, though, 17 and 15. I think her last opponent was 5 and 8. So not terrible, but certainly not great. Only loss came in her pro debut, which was by TKO. The Brazilian is a physical specimen, 1 inch taller, 3 years younger. She'll have 11 fight experience advantage as far as MMA is concerned. Lansberg does come from a Muay Thai background. And I said last time Cyborg weighed in at 139 pounds. We'll see if she tries to come in at 138 or even 137 to see if she can, get close to that 136-pound limit for the bantamweight division. For Lansberg, Muay Thai base, she's trained with Akira Kurosani, talked about that quite a bit. She has that nickname, I think it's the Princess of Elbows or Elbow Princess, which comes from her time when she was training in Thailand where she was hurting girls and cutting them open with her elbow strikes, so they gave her that nickname. It's kind of fitting. When she's not looking to land those elbow strikes, jab to the body, she'll throw some quick, short combinations, but she tends to move in straight lines, and she's not overly powerful with her hands. She'll throw some... Her kicking technique is solid. Excuse me. Nice right leg kick. Both will go high with it. We'll go to the body. We'll go to the midsection. She's willing to trade and move forward. And she referenced Jarina bars and how she was effective against Cyborg, hurting her and not allowing Cyborg to dictate the pace of the fight, which tells me that Lansberg's probably going to come out aggressive and try and get in her face. And if not, she's going to sit back and counter and try and make her pay for moving forward. I don't think either one of those is going to be overly effective. The clinch against the cage is an area that she's going to look to try and exploit, which, I don't know, she frames her knee strikes very well. Obviously, this is where she lands the majority of her elbows. She'll come over the top. She'll also land a nice step-in elbow. In her last fight, she landed a whole bunch of elbows where she was stepping in and cracking her opponent with them almost as if they were short punches, which was nice to see. But her opponent again was kind of overmatched, and eventually she went to the mat and got finished with some ground and pound. With Cyborg, we know what she's all about. She's a monster. 14 wins by knockout, 9 first-round finishes, 4 in a row dating back to the Marloes Kunin fight in Invicta, where she captured the title and stopped Kunin in the 4th round. She is the reason 145 pounds is so weak. Fighters are leaving mass exodus style to 135 pounds to avoid her, realizing that there's less potential for her to hold a title and not get their asses kicked because Cyborg exists. If you were a champion in any organization of merit and you win the title, Cyborg's probably right around to steal your cookie. She will be coming. There's power in everything she throws. She will smash opponents both on the feet and on the mat. She throws a left jab, right hook combination, which is very effective. She will unload with crisp combinations, hard leg kicks, body and head kicks. She's the complete package when she's striking. She's got better, more technical, but she can still brawl and put people away. Against Leslie Smith, she bit down on her mouthpiece and exchanged with her after hurting her a couple of times with just, close combinations. She just swarmed her and, dropped her. Could have been a quick stoppage, but Smith was hurt. No doubt about it. Now, in that fight against Barr, she ate some big, big shots and didn't go down. She went down, I believe, a couple of times, but she didn't get knocked out, which tells us it's going to be very difficult to put her away. Ultimately, if somebody like Amanda Nunes cracks her, maybe that's a different story. Maybe if Holly Holm puts a shin upside her head, we see her knocked out. We haven't seen that yet, so we can't really anticipate upon that. The other way to beat Cyborg, I guess, would be to outwork her. Drag her into deep waters and exhaust her. Make her swing and miss. For this is a 5-round fight, make her swing and miss for 3 rounds. Give up those first 3 rounds by basically doing nothing. Don't let her hit you. Probably you can't hit her as a result. And just avoid, and then hope to go after her in rounds 4 and 5 and finish her. Easier said than done. Lansberg has never faced anyone like Cyborg. Very few have. Everybody has a game plan, a story to tell about how I'm going to do this to her. I'm going to get in her face. I'm going to push back. Until Cyborg hits you, it's a whole other world. Cyborg's too big. She hits too hard. She will overwhelm her opponent, who doesn't have the greatest hands, who will willingly come forward and engage with her, looking for that elbow range, and Cyborg's going to knock her out. My prediction is Cris Cyborg to defeat Lina Lansberg by knockout. So those are my 6 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 95. Again, I had another rant to close upon the fact that UFC's got all these consecutive events. This one isn't star-studded, and probably you could be done without it. Just spread these fights out elsewhere, but we're here anyway, so we'll make the best of it. Certainly consider buying the bet packs. I know I haven't produced well. You can see that I'm on the cusp of breaking through. It's just a case of one fight here or there that is the difference between being like, yes, I'm a fucking money-making machine versus, goddamn, another loss. We'll break through, and that's why my people continue to buy them, because they know it will happen. Follow me on Twitter, KO_predictions. I'm going to bed, folks. It's exhaustingly late. Good night. Thanks for listening. Take care.